The surface of quiet moments I had to sit in the back seat on my husband's son's lap. I never imagined I'd find myself in such a position, wedged awkwardly in the back seat of my husband's sleek two-door coupe, perched on my stepson's lap like an afterthought. James. My husband didn't so much as glance back as he told me to. Squeeze in his voice was clipped. Indifferent, a tone I had grown so used to that I didn't even flinch anymore. He remained focused on the road. His Bluetooth headset stuck to his ear like a permanent accessory. The leather of these seats was cool against my skin. The ride uneven, and every bump or swerve made me too aware of Tyler's body beneath. Mine, Tyler, his son, my stepson. He didn't say a word. Neither did I, but his breath lingered near, my neck too close. And yet somehow I didn't move. Maybe I didn't want to. I attempted a light chuckle. A deflection of discomfort your dad really needs. A bigger car. He let out a quiet laugh. It was low and restrained, but something about it struck me. It had been a long time since anyone in our home laughed like that. I shifted slightly, trying to give us both some space, but there was nowhere to go. The tight confines of that back seat were unyielding. James drove one, entirely oblivious, or maybe willfully ignorant, of the odd energy blooming behind him. That brief moment passed without comment. But it stirred something in me, a flicker, a pulse, a subtle but persistent awareness. When we got home later that night, James disappeared into his office without a word, didn't say good night, just as he hadn't for weeks, maybe months. Our lives had quietly splintered into two coexisting orbits. Him and me, the silence was our native language. Now our meals were robotic. Arbed might as well have been divided by a trench. Conversations had become little more than logistical check-ins, rent bills, groceries. I used to tell myself this was just marriage, that all couples eventually simmer down into silence, that this emotional absence was a phase, that I was lucky, but that backseat ride, Tyler's closeness. It woke something I thought was long buried. Not love, not lust. Just something, a pulse. A reminder that it still existed, that I had a body, that I could be seen. Not just glanced at, but truly seen. The next morning I caught sight of Tyler from the kitchen window, shirtless, leaning against the porch, cradling a mug of coffee. The steam rose blurred his features a little, but not enough. He saw me watching, and he didn't look away that night. James came home late again, reeking of whiskey and the kind of forced laughter that clung to him after business dinners. He barely managed to make it to the couch before. Passing out, Tyler was in the living room, headphones in, studying. I brought him a glass of water. He took it gently, said, "Thanks," and met my gaze, a simple word. But the way he looked at me, it was as though I mattered. Over the next few days, small shifts started to stack up like dominoes. Tyler began lingering more when I was in the kitchen. His offers to help came naturally, folding laundry, reaching for a high shelf. At first I chalked it up to kindness, but the way he noticed things James never did, the new haircut, the rearranged spice rack, the faint wariness in my face left me defenseless. I didn't stop him. I didn't set boundaries. I let it happen. I welcomed the attention I found myself choosing, softer fabrics, wearing old perfumes I hadn't touched in years, nothing dramatic, just enough to feel like me again, like a woman, not just James's wife or Tyler's stepmother, but someone alive, deserving of notice. One night, James stumbled in late and collapsed into bed without undressing. His snoring filled the room. Within minutes, Tyler was still awake, music humming faintly from his room. I couldn't sleep. I lay there, my body tense, heart pacing, through the memory of that car ride. Again and again, the way our bodies fit. Intentionally, reluctantly, but memorably, the quiet heat between us. How me husband never once looked back. Began watching Tyler more, listening to the way he said my name, observing how he hovered in doorways just a second longer than necessary. And I began asking myself, the questions I didn't want the answers to one afternoon in the backyard. James barked into his phone inside, while I pulled weeds from the flower bed. Tyler wandered out and crouched beside me. Our hands brushed in the soil. He didn't pull. Wait, neither did I. I met his eyes. That look, yes, I knew it. I'd seen it before in dorm hallways at campus parties, that prelude to something. Unspoken, he didn't act, he didn't have. The possibility was enough. I should have stopped everything. Then I didn't instead. I leaned into the illusion I started, avoiding James, but not. Overtly subtle evasion. I was tired, I had a headache. The excuses were effortless, but it wasn't about escape. It was about seeking something I couldn't name. Yettler never made a move. He didn't need. To every glance, every touch, every conversation held weight, unspoken, unresolved. And then came the night James left for a weekend conference. The house was unnervingly quiet. I brewed tea and sat at the kitchen table long after the mug had gone cold. Tyler entered hoodies. Wet pants, hair still damp. He saw me, he paused. "You okay?" he asked. "I don't know." I said it was the most honest thing I'd said in months. He sat across from me. The silence was thick, intimate, not awkward. I told him I felt invisible. That I was tired of pretending, that sometimes I didn't even recognize myself. In the mirror, my voice cracked. He didn't respond with words. He reached across the table and placed his hand over mine. Gentle, still not suggestive. And yet, something shifted. I didn't pull away. He stood, walked around the table, knelt. Beside me, he looked up into my eyes and waited. I let him. Every heartbeat was a siren. Every breath a protest and a surrender. The kiss was soft, careful, not demanding. It felt like coming up for air. After years underwater, every touch that followed was a conversation. Every pause asked, "Is this okay?" And every answer, agave, was, yes. It wasn't passionate. It wasn't frantic. It was real. Afterward, we lay in silence, not touching, not speaking. Eventually, he dressed and left the room. I stayed beneath the sheets. Breath shallow, eyes wide open. This wasn't a mistake. Born of impulse, it was deliberate. I had walked into it, willingly, and that made it worse. I couldn't even summon fear of James finding out. I wasn't scared, I was numb. The following days blurred. James returned, kissed my cheek without looking, told me about meetings I didn't ask. About I nodded. Smiled when I had. Toddler was distant. Now careful always, finding reasons to not be alone with me. We didn't speak of that night, but it clung to us. It defined us one day. I saw his glass in the dishwasher, just a regular glass. But I stared at it like it was evidence, like it held every secret I couldn't bury. I started losing myself again, but differently. This time, James noticed my distance. He asked if I was okay, just tired. I said, he nodded. That was all the space between. As was no longer a quiet retreat. It was a grave. Tyler and I crossed paths one night in the kitchen. I asked him, "Do you hate me?" He shook his head. No. But he didn't say more. The next morning. He was gone, room empty. No note. I told James. He must have gone back to campus early. He didn't ask why. Now I sit on the porch most nights alone. Not waiting. Not hoping. Just existing. Remembering what I did. What it cost. And how quietly everything changed.